All right, welcome to the 100 Days of Nautobot. We're actually going to be going over day number 21 and 22. It's essentially going over how to process files. In this case, we're going to just use a CSV file. And the job that I have is nothing more than just reading from an actual CSV. It's a required field, so you can't run it unless you pass something in there. And it's just a very generic job at the moment. All it's doing right now is just logging out the data. So in this case, we have 4 rows, 4 different devices, a switch, a router, a firewall, and an AP, 4 different types, 4 different roles, 4 different serials, 2 locations that are the same, and then 1 ELP, one in Houston, and then we have statuses active, offline, active, and active. So in this case, there's a couple of typos in here. One, we do not have roles firewall, we don't have roles switch or access point, as well as the location. We don't have this location here. And the status, we have all of these statuses to work with. So if I actually try to ingest this data now, you would get an error because none of these would exist, right? It would depend on the logic of your business or your goal. Some people don't like to create locations from user input data because sometimes they may misspell information. Sometimes you don't want users to just willfully just create locations just however they want to. Sometimes these are always locked as a get, and if it doesn't exist, then you error out and you tell a user, this is why I errored out. Same thing for roles. It really depends on what your standards are. So let me jump to the code, write something that will just read this data and input the errors just so we can kind of get things going. So I'll be back after this short break. I went ahead and kind of created a custom error. Not necessary, but I would do this for the client whenever they had something that imported a lot of rows. And this is kind of the way that I would go about it. So I would keep track of the error and the row. And then once I validated everything in the CSV first, and this could be cleaning up the data, cleaning up the data, validating that it is correct. Basically, anything that I could do before I even touch the database, I would run it first. And once it was 100%, clean as far as like user input, then I would try to do all of the actual gets or anything in the database operations. Could there still be errors? Yes, of course. But at least I did my due diligence and validated that the data that the user was, giving me was actually at least correct. In this case, I tracked each of the rows, right? So like a row 1, 2, 3, 4. So each one has an error, and then I tell them, right, device this does not exist for that particular switch, and that's the same for all of these. If I had multiple errors, I would have multiple of these. So it can be row 1, and I can have 1 error, comma, 2 errors, comma, 3. So I can have multiple errors in each row, and the user can now go to row 1 and then fix whatever needs to be done. So this is kind of what I would do to create something like that. And essentially, what I did was, in every exemption, right, that I did, device, does not exist because I know that's what I'm doing. I'm doing gets on all these. I would just do my error message, right? The row, a message, and then I would both log it as both add it to a list. And then at the end, if I have errors, just raise this device import error, and it's just a dictionary down here. That does not have anything. It's just a pass, and it just imports exception. So it's, like I said, that one's completely unnecessary, but I usually try to name it so that they know a user that's going to be reading this more than likely is not code savvy. So if you give them a lot of information here, they can be able to kind of troubleshoot their own problems. And this raises it to failed so that this failed. And if this is something that runs automatically via like email, fetching the CSV or some other program, then you can have, it failed, do the actual CSV, attach it to an email, attach it to a Teams message, or whatever it is that you need to do to kind of show it. And then the data is actually down here as well. It tells you each of the rows and the logging out of it. So with that being said, now let me actually fix this program And then I'll walk through on what I would do to kind of get this to completion in terms of both checking that the data is correct, as well as creating all these objects in Nautobot. So be back shortly. The job, so you can see what goes on. So you can see device switch, router, firewall, AP all get created. And if I go to the actual device or switch, in this case, we'll see, switch roles here, status is active, the serial number, the device type, the location. And if any more information I would have, I would also do it here. But that's essentially how you can do importing of information, or in this case devices, based on this. Now I could have gone a step further and actually done like validation here, like in case they only provide a name and we have a convention that says, hey, this name is always supposed to have the location, um, at the end of it. It's supposed to say switch core 01, but it's supposed to say DFW at the beginning. We could also do that. So in this case, let's actually delete all the data. And then I will go through my code and then the actual changes that I'm going to do. So in my code, it's fairly simple. I have to do it in steps because there's a hierarchy of objects in Autobot that you kind of have to abide by. So in this case, I need to first get the device type. I could do a get or create, but in this case, I'm making it so that if it does not exist, I'm going to actually error out down here. So I will do a get for the device type. Then I have to create a role because I'm doing get or create in this case. In this case, I allow the user to create a role for this job. And in order to create a role, I have to get the content type of the device model. The device content type here, and I'm actually going to change this to object. When I create it, right, if I create it, because get or create returns a tuple, so it returns the object and then it returns true or false if it creates it. If I create it, I need to add the content type of the device type object to the role, because if you don't, you won't be able to assign it to a device. Similar to if you go into the UI and go to roles and you create something, if I just create test, you won't be able to assign it to anything, right? You have to assign and add where this is going to be eligible to be used. So if you use set, it will completely use only this. If you're going to be doing other things, you can use add as well. But in this case, since it's brand new, I'm going to use set because I'm just adding it to the device type. So I log that. Then the third thing I do is get the location, right? Get the location object. Fourth thing, same thing, status, get or create. I'm allowing the user to create these statuses. And if they do create it, similar concept. I add the device content types of the device type to that status so that I'm able to create it. Finally, I get to this part, which is get or create device. And I look for the device name, right? If the device is already there, then cool. If not, then I pass default values of what I wanted to have when I create this data. In this case, device type, the role, the serial, location, and the status all go through the defaults, and that's what ends up being created for the device. So this is something that you can do to read information and read data and kind of validate it. There we go, comment. So what I like to do sometimes is, if I know that I'm going to be looking through information here, right, and there's going to be errors, what I can do is, if I raise an exception down here, I can wrap this entire thing in an atomic transaction so that if I run into an error, in this case down here, because if I run it here, you'll exit out prematurely, but I can do it where I pick it up down here and say, hey, if this has any errors, after I log this out to the user, roll back all of this data that I created so that nothing gets imported. You can also do that. And that library is Django DB transactions and it's atomic. You can use this as a decorator, or you can use it with transaction atomic, and you can also do that as well. So that's also something that you can do if you're trying to roll back a lot of data. But this is something that you can easily use to import information that comes from a CSV. and you can do multiple validations, right? And you can do exceptions, catch it, and then show it to a user. You can do cleanup like roles if you want to have like a title case and whatnot. And I'll do this once more. There we go. So now we got DFW switch 401, and you've got this as well. And you can validate it here as well, where maybe the 01 isn't given and you just get core switch, and they can give you two of them, and then you can add the 01, 02, 03, depending on what you're doing. And you can go as far as doing all of this other information down here. So that's just a quick intro into getting data from the CSV, using Nautobot, writing a simple job that just kind of goes through the motions on creating the objects and knowing what has to be created first in order to create other things, and how to assign stuff such as device type, role, and status to a device, especially be created, or else you would get an actual error. You can see here when you create it and you don't specify a content type, you're going to see that it's blank. And if I go to the device, you'll see it, but it's not correct. And I can even go here and if I try to update it, it's going to give me this error, right? Like this does not exist. Like it's not a role because it's not, you can't add it because it's not part of it. So technically you did add it, but it's actually wrong. Like it's not, it's not the way that it's supposed to work. Um, we should see test role status, DCIM, DCIM, and now the devices are correct. So if I go to edit and I want to add an asset tag of 123, it does not error out because it indeed has a content type. So that's just something to look out for. And that's just the way that kind of get or create works. It's not correct. So it's something to watch out for. Get, create, it's kind of how those both work by using defaults or passing in arguments. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in the next one.